Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to a video that I am very excited to share with you. I see some people who start doing this like super early in the year, and for me I like to try to wait till we're at the middle of the year. So this I'm planning to put up in June, so I figured it was a safe time to do it. This is going to be all my 6-star books so far. So if you don't know, if you're new here or you haven't heard me talk about this much, back at the end of 2020, I added a 6-star rating to my personal rating scale. Because I don't believe in holding back my 5 stars to make them more special, I want to be able to give, I mean, technically I'd like to be able to give every book a 5-star if it were good enough. I mean, unfortunately, that doesn't usually happen. So I created a 6-star. This was something that I had seen some other creators do in previous years, and I never really had seen the purpose of it until I started reading, 300 plus books a year, and I was having, I think the one year I had 45 5-star books, and it was just like too many to like wrangle down. So I created this 6-star, and so for the past 2 years I've used that when I read a book that is more than a 5-star, just so that I have that like extra room where I can read a book that maybe doesn't have the same like emotional hit, but it was still a perfectly wonderful book. I can give it 5 stars and be like, yeah, that was great. And then there's a book that I read it and I'm like, but this book in my opinion is so superior to this book. But I don't want to give that book a 4-star just because it's not this book, So that's why I created the 6-star. And this year I have had so far a lot less 6 stars than I did, but a lot of my favorite authors had put out their books very early in the year last year too, so that's part of it. There's still a lot of great books coming in the year, so by no means is this like all there's going to be. And at the end of the day, the fewer 6-star books I have, the less books I have to reread in December, so I definitely don't have a problem with that. But we are going to go ahead and dive in. I have 9 books that I've rated 6 stars so far. And these are all books that some of them I've already reread them multiple times, but I will reread them in December because December of every year is when I decide my favorite books, and I spend the whole month rereading all my favorite things, and it's the best. It's the best. So we're going to go in order that I read them. And I probably won't talk too in depth about these ones because in general, they're all books that I have ranted about or raved about a lot because they're my 6-star books. So we're going in the order that I read them. And these first 2 books I'm about to share, I actually read them in December, but because I had already made my favorites list, I just scooted them into the next year so that I could talk about them for the whole year round. So the first one that I have to mention will be no surprise to anyone who's been around for more than a hot minute. There is Manacled by Sin Len Yu. This is a Harry Potter fanfiction, and yes, it is a 6-star book to me. This behemoth that was bound for me by my friend Joe is like, I think almost 1,000 pages, the one I have. Okay, the bound copy she made me is 942 pages is how long this is. This is a Hermione fan fiction. This is like crossed with a Handmaid's Tale is the best way that we've come to describe it. And Hermione wakes up in the dungeons of Hogwarts and Lord Voldemort has won. All of her loved ones are dead, and she is now a part of a breeding program to take magical beings that were on the losing side and use them as walking wombs for the Dark Lord, because there is a problem getting births of magical children. And so they are given to magical couples to be raped and impregnated, and they are manacled and held captive to do this. So Hermione gets given to Draco and his wife to be raped every month. But there's a lot more going on as well. Hermione, while she was in sensory deprivation, this book is way too heavy to hold up. I will break my wrist, so there we go. She has hidden the memories of the Order and what they were up to so well that even she doesn't remember them. And so the Dark Lord also tasks Draco with, once he gets her pregnant, he will be able to create a link with their minds, apparently, so that he can delve into her mind and find out her secrets. So this book is actually this fic is split into 3 parts. There is a current timeline where Hermione is waking up and we see to it. And then there is a flashback period, which explains, it goes back in time, I think like 3 years, and explains how we got to the beginning of the first part. And then there's a third part, which picks up where the first part ended and continues from there. This book is extremely dark, but it is also one of the best fantasies I've ever read. It's fan-fucking-tastic, and I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about it if they can get through it. There's also, I don't think that the audiobook is completely finished yet, but ETL Echo on Spotify has most of the chapters for this produced. Because this is a fanfic, people cannot make money off of it, but there are, which also means that like nobody can like license it or anything. So there is this like Patreon funded group that they make audiobooks of fanfics, and you can listen to Manacled if you'd like, because it is huge. Again, one of the best things that I've ever read, like hands down. This is among my favorite stories that I've ever read. It was gut-wrenching. It was intellectual. I don't know how this writer created this, you know? And the thing I learned from fanfic, this being my very first one I ever read, you know, I hadn't necessarily turned my nose up at fic. I just hadn't, no one had made a compelling enough argument for me to read it before. That's what I would say. But my friend Jo, who is the one who bound this for me, she also has a channel now, Not So Average Jo. She convinced me to try it. And I was quickly like, I can't put this down. Because it was so amazing. So, definitely my like favorite book. Just, it's amazing. Then, Temptation of a Highlander by Lisa Braden. This one's also very shiny. This is book 3 in her Midnight in Scotland series, and this book just stole my heart. I knew it was going to be good, but I had to give it 6 stars. It's so great. I can't wait to reread this one. The audiobook is out for it now. It wasn't out when I originally read it. But Elisa Braden just writes the historical romances that I deserve. Okay, I deserve this. We all deserve this. So this one is about Clarissa Meadows, and she's this really beautiful woman, and she catches the eye of a madman who becomes a stalker very quickly. When she doesn't want to be with him anymore, he becomes a stalker. And so she runs to the Highlands to stay with friends there, and he actually follows her. This stalker follows her to Scotland. And then Campbell McPherson is one of the McPherson clan, and he shouldn't be dreaming about the beautiful maiden, and he actually has a little bit of the sight, which these books, they do all have a little bit of magic happening in them, just slightly little bits in here. And he doesn't feel that he is a good partner or a safe partner for anyone. He has a tragic past of like losing someone, but when it becomes clear that like Clarissa needs help, but she also needs to be kind of like isolated from other people so that they don't get hurt as collateral damage, he brings her to his home to stay, which, you know, very quickly leads to her being compromised. And then they're also like, hey, well, this stalker can't make her marry him if she's married to someone else. So it becomes kind of a marriage of convenience. And Clarissa's like very much very much attracted to him. And she's like, this isn't going to be a marriage of convenience. We're going to be getting down and dirty. It's going to be happening. And I just love it. I love it so much. I can't wait to reread it. I can't wait for the next book in the series. Elisa Braden always knocks it out of the park. Then we have another fantasy. This one is a bit of an older one. I think this came out in 2013. This book came out in 2013. I can't believe it. I had heard about it many, many times, but I had never gotten into it before. And I freaking love it. And it's in Treat Me by Grace Draven. I had only read, what is it? The series that everyone loves by her. I had only read the first one in that series. And then I read this one because my friend Crystal was reading it and she was raving about it, and there was an audiobook for it on Anyplay, and so I started listening to it and I loved it. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but the heroine's like younger sister maybe fits more of the Belle archetype than our heroine does. But Levain is actually a widow, and she is a spiky sharp-tongued woman. And when this young man woos her sister and runs away with her, Levan is like, fuck no. And so she chases after him, making her way to the enchanted castle where her sister has come. And it turns out that both this man who is wooing her sister and his father, how do I say his name? Ballard of Ketchatur, he is a beast, and his son is also cursed. And you know, someone has to fall in love with them to break the curse, and so they think that the younger sister, that she could be the one. And they end up getting stuck there for the winter because the weather gets too bad. And Levan is like, I'm going to be here to be a chaperone, and you can woo my sister, but my sister will leave here with her honor intact in case you choose not to marry her at the end of this wooing period. I'm not going to let my sister be ruined. And since I'm a widow, I'm a proper chaperone. And as Levan and Ballard start to get closer, she is first like, she's willing to share her body with him. She's not scared by how he looks or by his grumpy demeanor, and because she's also a grump too. Like, she's also not a sunshiny person. These are two grumps. Okay, these are two grumps. And because she is not a widow and she had a husband who they would please each other, she's like, well, how about Ballard and I? How about we please each other? How about we do that? There's some extremely steamy scenes between the two of them here. And there are parts of this that follow more of like the French version of Beauty and the Beast. And I love, of course, the people who like live in the castle and everything. Of course, they're cursed as well. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. I loved the heroine. I know for some people this got like boring in some places because it is pretty long, but I loved Levan and how she loved her sister, and I loved how she fell for Ballard, and I love how they were both so like, do we deserve a second chance at love? And it's like, of course you do. Of course you do. So, highly recommend. Then, good old Kresley Cole. Every book of hers I read is a 5 or a 6 star. They're fantastic. This was Monroe. I got to be on the ARC team for Monroe. I thought I was going to die, and Kresley, she dedicated this book to us. She said, dedicated to you guys with all of my heartfelt gratitude for your patience. Kresley Cole went through some shit, guys, okay? So it took a very long time for us to get this book, okay? It did. And it was also super hyped because we'd seen a little snippet of what's happening to Monroe. We'd seen that at the end of McGrieve, and it had been years and years and years and years. And I can't tell you how trepidatious I was, because I have high fucking hopes. I've loved so many books that have been in this series, and it's like, can the next book hold up? Can Kresley do as good of a job with it as she has with everything else? And the answer is yes. This one is a light gay romance. This has time travel in it, has a heroine who absolutely positively is not going to be happy with Monroe, but of course their sexual chemistry and their fated mateness is there, and there are dangers, and there are just all the things, and I wept at the end of this book because Monroe deserved a happily ever after so much, and it was so satisfying to see him get it. I loved it. Absolutely fantastic. Then I have Soul Eater by Lily Mayne. This is the first book in the Monster series. I've talked about this one a ton too. This whole series is gay monster romance. This one is between Danny, who is a reluctant soldier who gets used as bait to try to capture the Soul Eater. The Soul Eater's name is Wynn, and he comes to Earth every so many years to wipe out people, supposedly. He will pop in from the other world and start eating people's souls. That's what we think. Leave behind these dry husks in his wake. And when Danny is getting used as bait, Wynn lets himself get captured by the military. And Wynn will only speak with Danny. And so the military is like making Danny go in to speak with him. And Wynn is very intrigued by Danny. And then Danny wakes up and the entire place has been like trashed. And Wynn is like, I'm escaping. If you'd like to stay here and probably be blamed for what happened, you can. Or you can come with me and I'll help you find a safe place to stay. There are these groups of savages, of salvagers, and some of them are safe and we can maybe hook you up with one of them. And so Danny begins traveling with Wynn, and he expects Wynn to maybe kill him at any time. And Wynn is just, he's soft and squishy inside. And as we learn about what Wynn is and what his real mission is and what's going on, it's delicious. And there's also some fun body parts. So we'll say that. Then, I mean, another one that's like, what is there to say? A House of Sky and Breath. This book is literally the reason that I started the SJM along. Specifically how this book ends. I had to reread all of her books immediately. And so we set up the SJM along. This book continues about Bryce and Hunt. I'm obviously not going to spoil it. There is more backstory and more POVs than you know what to do with, and there is so many layers and things that it can be overwhelming, and I understand why the Crescent City series might not be for people, but to me, this series is the version of going from like high school to like college to graduate school, okay? There is so much work that Sarah has done, and I feel like even I, at this point, don't fully appreciate what she's done. But as I'm doing these rereads and I'm starting to see the things that she has planted in place for the last decade of her writing career, I am in nothing but awe of her talent. And this book, when I was making my way through really the whole thing, I personally enjoyed this whole book. I understand why a lot of people are like, oh, it just always drags for the first half, but it doesn't for me. It doesn't for me. And I know that I'm an anomaly. Like, I fully enjoy all of the rambles that Sarah J. Maas takes us on, you know, in the way that a good, like, an adult fantasy that a lot of people, you know, not everyone has the time for those. Not everyone wants to devote it to it. And I'm not saying that other people who don't enjoy this, that you're wrong or you're missing something. But there wasn't anything about this one I didn't enjoy. And so when my friends are like, oh, it's just dragging on, I'm like, is it? I didn't notice. I flew through this book in a day and a half, and I enjoyed every moment that I was reading it. It was fantastic. That's all I have to say. And I love her writing. I'm a diehard for it, and I will trust her with whatever she's doing. But I understand if other people don't. I understand if they don't, but I do. Then this one, I've talked about this book all the time, but it's a 6-star book, and that's Between Raph and Mercy. And this was Jess Weisskopf's debut book. This is a fantasy novel about a mom. She's in her 30s. Her daughter has magical powers, and she has hidden her daughter away because her twin sister of the mother had the same thing that she's seeing her daughter have, and it was very dangerous. And her sister actually died when she was young, and it devastated her, and she does not want the same fate for her daughter. So she's very protective and possessive of her daughter. And then when her daughter goes on a trip with her father, who is her husband, her daughter gets kidnapped, and she turns into a feral being who is going to do whatever she needs to rescue her daughter, including going to Prince Rainier, who was her ex-love, and she hasn't seen him in 16 years, and she begs for his help, and he doesn't turn her away. He is like, I will absolutely help you find your daughter. Let's go. But there's a lot that went unsaid between them when they were torn apart all those years ago, and by the time he came to apologize for things he said, she was already married to her daughter's father, and it was too late. There's no cheating in this. I won't tell you how. There isn't. But I love this love story so much, and I can't wait to see what the author is doing with this series. Then, surprising no one, we got Brutal Vows. This is the last book in the Queens and Monsters. Fucking love this book so much. I've already read it literally 3 times since it's come out, and the audiobook is coming out in a couple weeks. I will be reading it again then. I love this series so much. I think JT did an amazing job. This one is about Spider and Raina, and Spider is supposed to marry her niece Lily. It's supposed to unite the Cosa Nostra and the Irish Mafia. And Spider, since Declan is already married and cannot forge this alliance, Spider offers to do it instead. He's very hurt from some events that happened in Savage Hearts. People ask me if you can read this book as a standalone. No, ma'am, don't do that. All the books in this series were 6 stars. All the books on this were my top books last year. So I know I'm talking about this one, but like, you need to read the other books. You can't skip to this one because there's so much that got set up in the previous books. Just don't do it. read them all. The audios are fantastic. It's great. But Raina is very distrustful of men. She had a very abusive relationship she was in for many years. She's finally free of that, and she wants to make sure her niece marries someone who loves her, even if it needs to be a arranged marriage. And she does not like the look of this cocky-ass, Viking-looking Irishman. She does not want him anywhere near her precious little niece. Spider, he has a lot of thoughts about this feisty Italian viper who's trying to ruin his plans and get in the way of what his boss has asked him to do. But he can't help that he gets a hard-on every time she's sassing him. He just can't help it. He just wants to spank her and do other things to her. And it's amazing. It's fantastic. And then the last book I want to mention is the only one I don't have a physical copy yet, and it's because I'm getting a signed copy from the author. But Always Practice Safe Hex just came out the day before that I'm filming this. It was so exciting. Juliet Cross, this is her 4th book in the Stay a Spell series and my favorite one. And I'm not even kidding. It's absolutely my favorite one. This is Gareth the Grimm. We're finally getting a Grimm, and Livy Savoy. And they have kind of this antagonism going on. It's more of like a friendly antagonism, kind of. And Gareth wants to sleep with her, and he makes no bones about it. He's like, we would have an amazing chemistry together. And he tells her, he's like, you're going to end up in my bed. You will. And she's like, no, I won't, as her lady bits are getting all jiggly for him. And they end up working together for this marketing campaign. They're both trying to win. They end up working together, them and another one, and they end up spending time together, so it's forced proximity, and Livy just becomes more and more impressed with him the more that she learns, and the more that we learn about the hurts that have happened in his past and like what he's hoping to do, the good he's hoping to do in the world. We get to learn about his powers. We get to learn about how sexy they are. This book is definitely kinky. This has some great sex scenes in it. Just fantastic. So much. Oh my God, it's so good. I don't want to tell you like a lot of stuff because a lot of it, the kind of like sexy time they're having has to do with a lot of the powers that he has, and you know, that's part of the fun. But this book does have BDSM elements in it for sure. Gareth is very dominant, and Livy did not realize she would like it so much. It's fantastic. And then I would say there is a trigger warning for assault in this one, obviously not by the hero, but just want to put that out there. So yeah, there you go. Those are the 9 books that I've given 6 stars to so far this year. Hopefully I have many more to come, but we're about at the halfway point of the year, so just wanted to share with you where I'm at. Let me know if there's any of these you haven't read yet, or if you have any questions about any of them. I'd be happy to answer it down below. Make sure you've liked this video by this point and subscribe to the channel. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Thank you to my channel members and patrons who support me. I do this job full time now, so if you want to check those out, check out ways to support me, you can do that down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.